Hey, good morning. It is Thursday, excuse me, Thursday, the 22nd of July, 2021. A warm and humid morning here in Northern Europe, not far from the shore of the North Sea. We have reached the final chapter of After Halloween, uh, the book we've been reading for my grandson Jax. Um, and this is gonna be a longer one today. We may even take a break in the middle of it. The last chapter is a little bit longer, but basically we're gonna steam on through. So the votive candles are lit. The window is open, so we'll probably get some street and little kid sounds. I have my cup of tea in my chocomel mug. So um, grab yourself a quick snack or something to drink because uh, we're going to get this done today. Then after this, I'll take a break and I'll record the afterward. I'll do that this afternoon. That will allow enough time for anyone who wishes to write an email about the story or the program itself or whatever they wish. As we know, it's a pretty wide open form to send in for tomorrow's It's the Mail segment with a friend of the show, Jimmy Page Turner. Okay, so got a moment or two to go grab what you need to grab. And I'm going to ring the little bell, and you know what the little bell means, right? 3 times, and then it'll be time to go. Okay, just a few seconds, I'm afraid, because we're in a hurry today. Not in a hurry, but we don't want to drag this out too much for people. Okay, it's asking a lot for people to sit and listen to someone read without any sort of stimulating visual, and especially someone who can't do voices or sound effects, which I cannot do. Okay. All right, here we go. There's the bell. Okay. Mr. Three of Spades is here to tell us that we're going to start the final chapter of After Halloween, which is called A Changing of the Guard. You will recall that at the end of the previous chapter, we made it through the winter, and as agreed upon, the previous autumn with the twinkly-eyed saxophonist, I went to the oak tree with my flute on March 1st, according to the Billverse calendar, the first day of spring, but he didn't show. Changing of the Guard, the final chapter of After Halloween. Here we go. The next morning brought no new twig messages, though the usual number of crows were inconvenienced by the motion of my drawing back the curtains. As I rarely looked outside after dark, it's possible the back garden served as an overnight roost for both local crows and those in transit to Utrecht or The Hague or some such place. Who could say? Despite my good Catholic upbringing, I had none of St. Francis's skill with bird languages, which to my ears had ever been little more than peeps, squawks, whistles, caws, and squawks. And when I arrived at the oak tree, there was no sign anyone had been there since I'd left the previous afternoon. For my part, I decided to repeat my actions of the day before. There was one change, however. Before I began to play, I removed a saucer I'd brought along. A long ago gift from a long departed cousin. It was white with roses around the edge. I placed it in the vicinity of where the leaf had fallen the day before, then sat back against the tree to play. 3 o'clock came. I wiped down the flute, put it away, looked around to make sure nothing, save the saucer, had been left out. I bowed to the oak tree as I had the day before and thanked it for its hospitality and tolerance of my clearly inadequate performance. As I turned to walk away, I remembered I'd left the saucer, so I went back to pick the saucer up, and as I did, a single leaf dropped from above, landing square on the saucer. Laughing as I pocketed it, I thanked the tree again and departed. At home that evening, as I put the new leaf and the one from the day before between sheets of waxed paper, and then between the pages of a dusty world atlas I found downstairs, I wondered what the rate of exchange might be. What are they worth on the open market? Could I deposit them at my bank? Or were they only useful in hand-to-hand transactions? This was Europe. I didn't know. Maybe they did things like that. There's still a lot of agrarian economy, as they call it here. It would never be done in the States, but again, I'm kind of a stranger still here, so I don't know what the customs are completely. I am also not a fool, but I'm not above silliness, which you probably have figured out by now. If you haven't, you haven't been paying attention. But I digress. This went on for the next week. Now, for 7 consecutive days, I practiced my flute, pedaled to Boogie's Hill, then went to the oak tree where I did exactly as I'd done the day before and the day before that. And at the end of each day, I was rewarded with a single leaf. Meanwhile, at home, though the crows kept showing up in the backyard, they left no messages for me. On the morning of the 10th day, as I rolled down the avenue of trees, the familiar sound of an alto saxophone drifted by. 3 notes, then 4 more, then the first 3 repeated, then a coda. I smiled, but resisted the urge to speed up because I would arrive at the oak tree soon enough. There you are, I said. We were wondering when you'd turn up. We? Do you have a mouse in your pocket, or have you taken to conversing with the trees? Well, not yet. I noticed that while he was dressed as he had been the last time I'd seen him, his saxophone was darker, even tarnished. Not at all the gleaming instrument it had been back in November. What happened to your sax? Lose your polishing cloth? He looked down at the alto, worked the keys as if running through a scale. Well, none of us are getting any younger. Sounds as good as ever, but yes, it has seen better days. Did you remember to bring the licorice? As a matter of fact, I did. Shrugging off my backpack, I unzipped the front pocket and produced a bag of Haribo licorice wheels. No, let's wait until lunch. Let's play some first. Show me what you've learned over the winter. I set the backpack against the oak, took out my flute case, assembled the flute. Oh, I like your saucer. It's very nice. I noticed his saucer was also out in the same place as the day we'd met. Well, thanks. Can't have leaves lying about just anywhere, you know. Very true. At noon, we took a break for lunch. Pulling out the bag of licorice once more, I carefully tore open the top and offered the bag. The smell of fresh black licorice filled the space around us. Licorice? Oh, yes, please. It smells delicious. He removed a single piece and bit it in half. That's very good. Well, I like to think it's good and good for you. And it's German, you say? Yes, they call them rotella, but in the English-speaking world, they're licorice wheels. Have another? German licorice? Who'd have thought? Oh, yes, please. Maybe a piece for later, if that's all right. Hey, you can have the whole bag if you want. I got another at home. I sort of keep one hidden For emergencies, you could say. Well, thank you, but the one piece will do nicely. He took a single piece with his right hand while reaching into his coat with his left, and when it appeared, was holding what I believe was a birch leaf. He carefully folded it around the licorice wheel and looked at it for a moment. That should do. Placed them both back in the unseen inside pocket. Now, during the pre-lunch session, he'd listened to three of my compositions, shall we say, then said, "Okay, let's try those three again. Maybe I can add something." I was playing a little slower than I had on previous occasions, concentrating hard, attempting to will myself into playing cleanly. No matter what your instrument, the involvement of others, either as players or listeners, introduces an additional integer to the equation. And things change. Not that saying that's good, not saying that's bad, but it's the way it is. His playing, whether it was a counter melody or complementary notes that he wove in between mine, brought these first very humble efforts of mine to life. I had three other short pieces, little more than variations on the first three, really, which I also played. Once again, he listened to them, asked me to play them again, then joined in on the third go-round with the same effect. I suddenly sounded like an honest-to-gosh minimalist composer, and I couldn't help but smile. After lunch, we repeated the morning's program with the occasional break to discuss different approaches to what we'd been doing. He spoke of sustaining some notes, cutting others short, then repeating the passage with the order reversed. Variety is, as they say, the spice of life, yes? There's nothing wrong with surprises in music, as long as they make some kind of sense, which is to say, they don't have to be obvious, but you don't want to stun the listener to such an extent that they stop listening to wonder why you did what you did, yes? Well, I won't be playing these for any audience, so no worries there. Really? He sounded puzzled. What about the trees? I looked at the surrounding oaks, birches, and elms. Sorry, fellas, my mistake. Won't happen again. At 3 o'clock, we stopped. I wiped down my flute, began to pack up. My companion did the same with his saxophone. When we'd both finished and stood up, 4 leaves came spinning down from above, 2 landing on each saucer. We both gave a slight bow, thanked the tree, and scooped up our tips. Things are looking up. I had been getting a leaf a day. Well, that's still not bad. A green oak leaf for 4 hours of making music beats busking for pennies, believe you me. Have you been saving them? You bet I have. They add up. This makes 11. I explained about the waxed paper and the World Atlas. He approved and reminded me to take good care of them because you never know, they might come in handy. After a last look around to make sure nothing had been left behind, we started down the path. Now, I am not an inquisitive person by nature, as we know, at least not as far as other people are concerned. I think I've made it pretty clear where I stand on pressing people for personal information, but this was one time I felt I had to ask a question. Where have you been for 9 days? Why are you late? Let's just enjoy the walk, shall we? We can talk tomorrow. When we reached the intersection, we said our goodbyes. He looked at me with a small smile. I enjoyed today. Those were nice songs. You certainly put your wit to good use. Oh, and thanks for the licorice. Who knew the Germans made licorice? And I have some to look forward to later. Would you like another piece for the road? No, no, thank you. I wouldn't like to take advantage of your generosity. Very kind of you. Well, say what you will, but I don't ask personal questions, and I don't push licorice on people once they've said no. Well, all right. Tomorrow I'll bring some more just in case. Ah, that would be nice. All right, then. I'll see you in the morning. Yes, you will. Safe trip home. Thanks. And to you, wherever home may be. Bye. And I was off. All right, I said we'd take a short break. This is the short break. So do what you got to do. Go to the bathroom, get something to snack on, get something to drink, do whatever because we are about to hit the end of after Halloween. It's not long now, not far away. All live all the time here at Gold Coast After Dark. We don't edit the best versions together here. Things either sink or swim on their own merits, which is as should be. Technology is not always our friend. All right, so here we go. The next morning, March 11th, was sunny, clear, and cool. Perfect early spring weather. I made my usual stop at Boogie's Hill, gave thanks for another day and another chance to get it right. I didn't hear any music while rolling down the avenue of trees, though. I had expected to, but I didn't give it much thought. I was sure he would be there. He said he would be. And he was. He was leaning against the oak tree, his hat in his hands, his eyes closed. A saxophone case lay unopened, just off to his right. I also noticed his old saucer was nowhere to be seen. Well, hey, good morning. You ready to play? We're burning daylight here, pal. Oh, I'm sorry. Have you been here long? I was thinking and sort of drifted off. No, just got here. You doing all right? Never better. Had you any plans for this morning? Apart from being here, no. No. What's up? Splendid. He put on his hat, pushed himself away from the tree. Let's walk a bit. Have you been to the little lake? Didn't know there was one. Then you're in for a treat. You can leave your bicycle and backpack if you like. The trees will watch them. He made no move to pick up his saxophone case. Huh? Whatever you say. Let's roll. 10 minutes later, after a stroll down yet another shady tree-lined avenue, we stepped to bright sunshine 10 paces away from the shore of a small lake. The surface was as smooth as glass, and it was surrounded by trees. I could see a few ducks, a heron, several geese. Midway from where we stood in the water's edge was a bench made from the trunk of a tree that had been sawn in half and set so that the sawn flat side was actually on the ground. So you sat on the bark, the rounded side. Let's sit, shall we? And sit we did. Well, we've missed the best part of the morning. From here, the sunrise is lovely. From over there, he pointed to the far shore, the sunset is equally lovely. Well, I guess I need to come out a bit earlier tomorrow. I promise you it'll be worth it. You know, when I was in high school, a friend and I used to drive around all night, all through the Chicago area. We often ended up at the Adler Planetarium to watch the sunrise over Lake Michigan. Now, the planetarium was at the end of an isthmus. No, I believe it'd be a peninsula. Yeah, I believe it's a peninsula, about a third of a mile into the lake. It's like nothing I'd ever seen. Just the sun suddenly appearing out of the waters. It was glorious. We sat in silence for a while. I thought back on those sunrises and later sunrises in Texas. In the years that followed, there would also be sunrises over the Cascade Mountains in Washington state, sunsets on the Pacific Ocean, still more sunrises viewed from the Lost Dog Overlook in Arizona's McDowell Mountains. No two alike, each stunning in its own way. And after seeing one, why would anyone ever sleep in again? Do you like coming here? I mean, do you like it here in the forest? Yeah, I do, I said. With great slow motion flaps of its wings, the heron took to the air. After a few seconds, he glided down to land a little farther to the south, stood motionless, staring out across the lake. Yeah, I got to tell you, I can't be around people too often or for too long, and this has become sort of a sanctuary for me. At least when I'm up on the hill or riding, it's a lot better for me. That's just the way it is. I hadn't thought about here in the forest. I had no idea what was in here, but this right here is terrific. I could sit here all day, reading, writing, maybe playing your flute. Playing my flute? You bet. I don't imagine there'd be too many interruptions here. Do you not like being around people because you don't like them? Or because you're intimidated by them? Now, you and we've had no problems. At least I don't think we have. No, we have been fine. But with others, we just don't seem to have a lot in common. It's frustrating. At my age, I don't need the aggravation. To be fair, I'm not what the English would call a clubbable man, and I doubt if I would put up with me, you know. So you come here. Yes, sir. I like it here. He picked up his hat, which he'd set beside him when we first sat down, and with the index finger of his left hand on the inside of it, held it away from his body and slowly twirled it around and around, looking like I'd seen cowboys do with their hats sometimes. Well, you could come here every day if you like. It's a nice getaway, that's for sure. Some days it just doesn't work out. Something comes up, somebody needs something done. The potential for distraction is high. And I don't like distractions either. And somehow distractions always seem to be related to people, so there must be a connection there. Would you come here as often as you could? I come here as often as I can now. What's he getting at? Why, what's going on? Would you bring your flute? Well, unless it's raining, sure. I mean, why? Is there's something going on I should know about here? I get the sense that I'm missing something. Well, it's just that someone should be here. Well, you're here every day, right? Except in winter, of course. Ah, that's just it, you see. I won't be here. Now, this was unexpected. Okay, what's that mean? You got to catch a bus or something? You going on vacation? No, it's time. It's past time, really. I've had to make up for being late last November, you see, but I couldn't leave until I found someone to whom the forest was more than the sum of the trees that stood in it. As has been noted, I have never been particularly clever or quick on the uptake. As a result, I wasn't understanding any of this. Okay, what exactly are we talking about here? I have to leave. The forest can't be left alone for too long. You've said you can't be here every day, so what I'm asking is if you will come here as often as you can, play your flute, basically do what you've been doing for the past 10 days, just during spring, summer, and autumn, of course. I hesitate to tell anyone they're crazy because, like love and epic, it has one of those words that has become so overused and misused as it has lost any sense of real meaning. He didn't smile. That was an accident. Okay, and how long would I be expected to do this? When will you be back? I won't be. Not ever. Maybe one day. I don't know. It depends. Okay, on what? That's just it, you see. It will depend on things I have no control over, so I really can't say. He stopped twirling his hat. It's up to you, of course. I just thought it was something that might interest you. It's not very demanding. You've got to admit the pay's good. 2 leaves a day to be what? Some kind of magical mystery tour forest ranger? Who said anything about magic? As for the 2 leaves, that's bound to increase as time goes by. He stood up, gave a little shake of his shoulders, put his hat on. Let's talk while we walk. It's time we got back. As we walked, I explained I still didn't know what he was asking me to do or why. Would I be committing to something? Making a commitment to anyone for anything was, if not the last thing on my mind, certainly close to it. I'd always believe you shouldn't promise more than you could deliver. I know people do that all the time, but I have tried not to be one of those people. Besides, I didn't really have anything that might be of use or of value to anyone else. No money or tools to loan, no car to act as a taxi service, no trade or marketable skills that would allow someone to avoid hiring someone else to do something for which they would rightly expect to get paid. Sorry, man, but my days of putting up a fence or framing and sheetrocking a new room for beer and barbecue are long gone. Okay, why me? Well, you used to spend your time on the other side of the highway, but then men and machines came in. You couldn't bear seeing that done. When was the last time you went there? Okay, hang on. How do you know that? I haven't said anything about that. It doesn't matter. The fact is, you haven't been back that way since, and that's why you come here. And when you told other people about what was being done, they didn't share your sense of outrage. Who else is going to care about a forest? Now, if you have any suggestions, I'd be grateful for their names because I am running out of time. Always that he was running out of time, but never an explanation as to why. The oak tree was in sight. I was relieved to see my bike and backpack and his saxophone case were still there. There's no reason to think they wouldn't be other than you don't go leaving anything of value where someone could stumble along and swipe them, because if you did, they would, as sure as eggs is eggs. So I put my hand on his arm. Okay, stop. Listen to me, will you? I don't know how you know the things you know. Whether or not they're true doesn't matter. I don't even care how you found out, but there's too much mystery here. There are too many gaps. I don't know what you're asking me to do, so please just tell me. Obviously, you want me to do something. Tell me exactly what it is you want, and I'll tell you whether or not I'll do it. I don't mean to be blunt about it, but that's how it's got to be. Just tell me. I don't like run around stuff. Just tell me. He turned to look at me, took off his hat, held it against his chest with his right hand. What I'm asking is if you will come here as often as you can with your flute and play by the oak tree just as you have for the last 10 days from now through summer and autumn. That's it? Okay, and then what? Then it's winter. a time, as you put it yourself, to recharge. You can go whenever you want, of course. You know where the lake is. There are other things to see as well. But I would ask that you begin and end your day, however long it may be, at the Oak. You don't have to stay all day if you don't want. An hour or two would be enough. Now, there's two things my old man used to tell me, and they rang out in my head, as they so often do in this life. There's always a catch, Willie, and everything has its price. Okay, that's all. That's all. Of course, the longer you stay, the better the pay. And the leaves add up, I know. What happens next spring? Do I start all over again? I can't commit to that. Look at me. Next spring, I'll be 68 if I live that long. There's no guarantees. Will you be back next spring? Will someone else? Hell, I'll be doing good to make it through this year. Did you see that in your crystal ball? He sounded truly puzzled. I don't have a crystal ball. Whatever gave you that idea? I've heard of them, of course, but I've never had one. You're right. Of course, spring is a long way away, and this is terribly presumptuous of me. It would be a terrible imposition, I know. And I have no right to ask you, but ask you I must. Would you come here on your terms as often as you can through the 3 seasons, from now until the end of autumn? I could do this and had no real reason not to. Would this be on my terms? On, as you say, your terms. Certainly. All right. From now until the end of autumn, as often as I can. Really? You'll do it? Till the stroke of midnight on Halloween? My word on it. And that's about all I've got. Take it or leave it. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. At the Oak, I picked up my backpack. So after this, you're gone, right? Yes, as I said, I'm already late. Almost too late, but I still have a few things to do. Well, it's going to be day to day. When I can, I will, but I can't promise any more than that. I'm sure whatever you manage will be fine. And again, thank you. Two large leaves spun down, landing at my feet. I believe those are for you. I haven't done anything yet. Maybe it's a bonus. Well, I'll take it. They add up, you know. I picked up the leaves, put them in the side pocket of my backpack. Okay, unless something comes up between now and then, I'll be back tomorrow. I'm glad we met. I gave a little salute, turned, walked to my bike, and started for home. About 50 yards down the path, I turned to give a final wave. The twinkly-eyed saxophonist was standing where I'd left him, with his arms away from his body and slightly forward, as hundreds of leaves drifted lazily down around him. And that is the end of After Halloween. All right. Like I said, it was a long one. I thank you for your indulgence here and your attention and riding through this with me. Uh, one more installment to do, which will be the forward. I'll get to that in a bit. Again, remember tomorrow, Friday, the 23rd, Jimmy Page Turner will be here with another episode of It's the Mail. So, I thank you a final time, and maybe catch you somewhere down the road. Bye-bye. For all of us here at Gold Coast After Dark.